My name is Shaoli Katana, and I'm the Director of Member Experience and Programs here at MSBA. We've started these coffee talk conversations with the sections a few weeks ago, and we're excited to have litigation today and to have a really nice turnout, and everybody's calling in with their big mugs of coffee. And I was just telling the group here that the longer this goes on, we'll know, because we'll look at how big our mugs are getting. So I'll just start off by giving you a little bit of background on, where we've been, what the MSBA has been up to, and I just have a few slides we'll go through, and then I'll stop sharing my screen. So just give me a moment. Okay, great. So we at the MSBA have been very active, very busy since the COVID crisis began. And we've been really thankful at all of the members that have reached out to us and that have joined us in putting together a lot of original content. We have several webinars that are on our site and available in a variety of channels such as YouTube and podcast. We've also had town halls with the ADR section, and as I mentioned, virtual section meetings and coffee talks. We've also done a lot of outreach to different Maryland entities and the bench, and we have collected and consolidated several questions from our members and from our Access to Justice civil aid partner, and shared over 150 questions with the judiciary. We've also been in communication and working closely with the governor's office and the legal counsel there. And we've also reached out to the federal judiciary and the administrative judges, and we'll be sharing those updates with you soon. Because as this continues, people are just in a state where they're facing something new that they've never experienced. So we want to have all the information and make sure that we're reaching out everywhere that we can. And all of these resources, this information has been provided to the entire profession, not just members during this time. We've also been holding weekly talks with some of the largest firms in Maryland to talk about how to weather the crisis. Those have been very productive and helpful in thinking through the next steps. We've also been working with the Chamber of Commerce as part of a working group, and I will have Richard discuss that in just a moment. We've also had a lot of content going out, as I mentioned, and I just wanted to highlight that we have an e-weekly that we now produce on Tuesdays and Fridays, having a roundup that collects a lot of original content and then the latest updates and legal news. We have a bar journal that's going to be completely digital and is forthcoming in a few weeks. And as I mentioned, we're now providing all of our content, our webinars for free, and we're now starting to offer our CLE catalog free of charge to all professionals through June 30th. And we do have coupon codes and information on our site for that. We also have a dedicated COVID website that we've been updating frequently with a lot of different categories of content. This is a very good resource if you just want some starting points for your business, for the courts, for health and wellness. Our on-demand webinars and upcoming webinars are also on there, so you can register by clicking through. And I just wanted to highlight that we're also continuing with our publications calendar. And these are some of the titles that are coming up: ESI, Judgment Avoidance, Criminal Pattern Jury Instructions, and currently we have Divorce and Separation and the Practice Manual for the Maryland Lawyer. And those are in print, and you can order those online as well. And if I could turn now, Anna, if you would like to give us an update on webinars and maybe a little bit more on any other publications.
Sure. It took me a minute to figure out how to unmute myself for a second, but you think after 6 weeks I would be really used to this, but I still struggle. So in terms of webinars, we have been conducting multiple a week. So on a variety of topics. I think our most popular has been, we have about 2 or 3 in the series related to the PPP loans. We also have had a lot about online mediation and how to execute mediations virtually, both as a general and then also kind of reviewing the available platforms and kind of a critique of the available platform. So all of those have been very popular. And as Shelly mentioned, those are all free of charge, and we advertise those weekly in our e-weeklies. And then we also have what we call a learn from home, which kind of gives you the preview of what's coming up for the week. We've also had last week on Friday, we had a great session called Midday Reset, which was basically just a stress relief, health and wellness, kind of mindfulness skill set, which I think was very helpful. And then if you weren't able to attend any of these in person, the great thing is we recorded them all. So they're all available for free on our YouTube channel. And again, if you could hang out on our head to our COVID website, you'll see the links for all of the webinars that we've done in the past, as well as the ones that are upcoming. And in terms of publications, as Shelly mentioned, we have made the difficult decision to make our next couple of publications that we normally would print and mail to all members available digital only. That's partly because just the mail system right now is, I think, a struggle for everybody involved, in that folks are still trying to figure out how to get their mail to the extent that you guys are working remotely. So our bar journal, which is scheduled to hit shelves, I'm going to say in the next week or so, will be available digitally, and that'll be pushed out via our weekly e-weekly newsletters. So you'll know that when that's available. And our bar bulletin for April is available now digitally on our website, and you can access that under the 4-member tab for bar bulletin. Those publications will be digital probably for this month and the next month, and then we'll return to print as soon as we kind of get a little bit of normalcy back on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. And as Anna mentioned, these are just some of the webinars that we have on demand, available on YouTube and SoundCloud and other platforms on our site. And then Richard Montgomery is on this call. He's our legislative director. Richard, could you give us an update on what you've been working on, any of your advocacy efforts with the governor's office, with the Chamber of Commerce, and talk about the impact of the special session?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Shelley. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Richard Montgomery, MSBA Legislative Director. Probably the two biggest things that we've been involved with since the pandemic really took hold and since the regular session ended are two executive orders. One is the executive order allowing remote notarization, which parallels a bill that was enacted during the 2019 session. It's a revised Uniform Act that Maryland adapted that was passed in 2019. The problem was it didn't have an effective date. The effective date wasn't until October 1st of this year. So what the governor did was enact an executive order that basically sort of provided a bridge to activate remote notarization now, prior to the effective date of the act. We worked closely with the real property section. The person who's sort of the MSBA guru on that is in the real property section and was on the Secretary of State's work group on that particular bill. So we've had a lot of involvement with that, and also providing information to the membership on interpretive guidance on that particular executive order, because no one really kind of knew exactly how this was supposed to work. So the interpretive guidance did sort of flesh out the executive order, which was really rather general, which they typically are. There was a second executive order on remote witnessing, which is somewhat related, but has its own completely different set of issues. In that, what the governor did in that executive order was he suspended a prohibition on remote witnessing of estate planning documents and that sort of instrument. That was a little trickier because there was a bill in 2019 that explicitly prohibited remote witnessing, but it was partly out of an effort of concern about fraud and undue influence that led to the passage of that bill. So for the duration of the emergency, there will be remote witnessing. The Estates and Trusts section has an emergency bill that, should there be a special session, that would be introduced during that special session. Should there not be, I think it's sort of a 50-50 proposition depending on the path of the curve and whether the General Assembly can find a way to possibly meet and vote remotely, which is something that they're currently considering. Shelley also mentioned our activity with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. She and I serve on the Maryland Chamber of Commerce COVID-19 work group. Now, much of the discussion for the first few meetings has dealt with the CARES Act and future legislation that's coming dealing with both the PPP program and the EIDL program. Now, the problem with both those is that with the activity on the Congress and the lending activity, everything is moving so quickly on that. So by the time we impart information to the membership, there's a very strong possibility that something has changed. So it's something that we really try to have to stay on top of. And that's an ongoing process. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And then if you could just speak about, we just saw the announcement that the General Assembly will not be meeting in May. Can you give any updates there?
Right. There were concerns that in that tight a space, there's been let me back up a second. There's been a COVID-19 work group, a joint work group of the General Assembly really since session adjourned. And they've been meeting on a weekly basis, and they've been doing that via Zoom. The General Assembly is very skittish about trying to meet in person unless there's a truly compelling reason to do so. Now, the state is looking at a budget shortfall at the moment of about $2.8 billion. And as I'm sure most of you know, the state cannot run a deficit. They are determined to maintain a balanced budget and must do so. Now, in terms of making cuts, the Board of Public Works can do that. I would say that right now, you're probably looking at fall at the earliest where there would be any real chance of a cut.
Thanks, Richard. We also have Lisa Kaplan here today, who is director of our Lawyer Assistance Program. Lisa, could you tell us about some of the wellness resources that we have now for our members and for the profession?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, my dog was very quiet until I turned off my mic back on. So we have a lot of resources on the health and wellness page, which you can reach through the main COVID page. There are a wealth of information. We have home workouts, we have yoga, we have the tip of the day, online classes, emergency resources, substance abuse resources, and just a lot of other information, tip sheets, and things that can help with the anxiety and fear and uncertainty of everything that's going on. Also, I've been running a COVID support group on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We have had 5 meetings, and next week is our 6th, and I'm going to extend that. It's been a small group, but it's been a really great group and a really great way of connecting with each other. And I've done different de-stressing techniques, and we've talked about a lot of different topics about how to manage things during this time. Also, the Lawyer Assistance Program, don't forget that we are available to help with any type of personal issues. This is not just a substance abuse program. It's free, it's confidential, it's available to all lawyers in Maryland. We have a statewide network of counselors, so when we're able to move around again, you don't have to come to Baltimore City. You can see somebody in your area. If you're ever concerned about an attorney, you can call me or email me and let me know what your concern is. That person will never know that you've made a referral, but it may end up saving somebody's life. It does not get them in trouble. It doesn't go anywhere other than the Lawyer Assistance Program. We also have financial assistance for anybody who is struggling. A lot of people are struggling now. That can help with mental health and substance abuse treatment. This can help from everything from weekly counseling to meeting with a psychiatrist to going into inpatient or outpatient treatment. So it is a huge resource. And any other questions or anything else that you want to talk with me about, you can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. We also have been working with our partner entity, Access to Justice. They've also created a dedicated COVID page that's for civil legal aid providers as well as the public to inform and educate them about what's going on in the different courthouses. And they've also provided topic-specific resources such as issues related to immigration, domestic violence, landlord-tenant, all of which have been impacted by the emergency. So you can click through to their site for a wealth of resources there. They're also doing weekly calls with civil aid organizations. They're currently working on a public information campaign, thinking through funding concerns as the emergency continues, and also implementing a process to make sure that we have enough volunteer attorneys available to provide disaster legal services. So as always, please reach out to us with any questions or concerns. We're here for you, and we're here to support you throughout this emergency. Anna, if I can just turn back to you for a moment, could you give us an update on annual meeting and what the plan is for that?
I can. Thanks, Shelly. So some communication will be coming out today to everyone. But the short of it is that our board had this special meeting earlier this week where they considered, multiple factors. And at the conclusion of that meeting, they made the very difficult decision to cancel the annual meeting for 2020. So we will be communicating to everybody that has registered, is scheduled to speak, exhibitors and things like that today. We have that draft ready to go. So we'll be circulating more information. So more information about if you are registered, what that looks like, or if you were scheduled to speak, what the options are. But the good news is that even though we have canceled the 2020 annual meeting, we have plans to hopefully repurpose many of the excellent programs that were submitted for that, and doing we're still working on the name, but right now I'm going to go with a summer series that we can digitally kind of bundle some of the courses in some practice areas that I think would be very helpful for practitioners that typically attend, to kind of get a bundle of courses in their practice area. So we'll be working with a lot of the presenters and speakers and the sections to help put those together over the summer. And then we are also looking at doing a brand new event in the fall, which we are tentatively calling the Legal Excellence Week, where we will combine many of our CLE and fall programs into 1 week. So more details about that will be coming out. Again, that's all very tentative. So we do have some exciting things coming down the pike. But as the board decided, that the 2020 annual meeting will be canceled, though.
Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome.
I'd like to turn now to Angela Monroe, the section liaison. Angela, can you give us an update?
Good morning, everybody. The litigation section has been really busy with planning some events for the spring, and hopefully we can have them virtually. One of our big signature events is the annual judges dinner. They've decided to move this to the fall. I will let Erin speak a little bit about that and announce the award recipient.
Thanks, Angela. Good morning, everyone. We obviously were disappointed. I think it was supposed to actually be this evening was the date for the judges' dinner, and we know it's something that everybody looks forward to. We, in March, made the difficult decision to postpone it, obviously, until and what we're looking at is dates in the fall. We have not yet secured a date, but of course, once we do, we will make sure that we get that out to everybody well in advance. I am proud to announce that our recipient of the Harrell Award for Judicial Excellence this year is Judge Angela Eves of Circuit Court in Hartford County, and she was thrilled to accept the award and really looking forward to the event. So we will be sure that that's rescheduled, and obviously we'll present the Harrell Award at the dinner. And this year was also our focus. We had invited a large number of the district court judges in Maryland, state court, to talk about practicing in the district court and give tips from the bench. So we will coordinate with everyone once we get that rescheduled.
Thanks, Erin and Angela. And Erin, if you could just speak a little bit more about sort of how this experience has been for you since the emergency started, and then I think we'll open it up to the group to just have a discussion and chat.
Thanks. Well, for me, it's I think as all litigators, the one thing that has been obviously stressful is looking at, following all the court orders that have come out from the various jurisdictions and trying to keep understand what the expectations are in each jurisdiction. And the MSBA has done a great job at sort of summarizing orders as they come out and trying to keep us current with all of that. So I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you for that. The experience for me has been interesting working exclusively from home, but trying to navigate again and keep things moving forward. And I think in talking to other individuals that generally have a litigation practice, sort of the keeping cases moving forward with the obvious hurdles given the court closures and the like. And I'm happy to, throw that out to anybody that has questions or wants to talk about their experience and what they're going through at this point. But I did just want to touch on, before we get to that, a couple other litigation section matters. We had a call, I guess it was last month, with our section counsel, sort of preparing to go move forward, knowing we would probably all be doing things virtually for some time. And in addition to postponing the judges program, we did also postpone our appellate program that was scheduled for early April. And we will be looking at, attempting to reschedule that at some point as well. We also were working on a special edition of our newsletter, which will be reaching out to the membership with resources related to the COVID emergency, and also just some light reading. We're going to have an article about Judge Eves, as she is the recipient of the Harrell Award this year, and some other interesting articles that I hope everyone will enjoy. So if you, so keep a lookout for that. And with the news about the annual meeting, we will obviously be looking to, and had already started looking into a way to meet with the whole litigation section virtually for our annual business meeting. And I'm sure we'll get some news out about that shortly. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Erin. Sounds like you're still doing a lot. You're doing all that you can, given the changes that are happening every day. And the MSBA, we are sending a lot of updates. We also have put together a spreadsheet of court orders that we're updating regularly. That's available on our website, on our COVID page. There's a button that just you can click through directly to it. And we also have sectioned those out depending on which court system you're looking at, the federal or Maryland judiciary. We also have updates about immigration court and tax and a few others. So I'd like to open it up to the group here. It looks like we have a nice amount here I can see on my screen. I think just starting off, would love to hear what your experience, what the transition was like for you in March when all of this was happening, if you had any plans in place, or if this sort of took you by surprise, and how you and your staff and your firm may have handled that. We have a chat function here if you'd prefer to correspond that way. Angela's watching that, or feel free just to unmute and join in the conversation. This is really for all of you. And I'll just jump in and the MSBA experience. For us, we have been working remotely long before this started. We had that capacity, so we were able to move into a remote environment pretty quickly. But it still took some adjustment and figuring out Hangouts and Zooms and everything else that goes along with it. But we were thankful to have a lot of members, as Anna had mentioned, that we're able to provide webinars on remote office options and just, resolving those initial issues. So, if you have any comments about that, I'd welcome that. I think also we would be interested to have a conversation today about what your experience has been like in court or in dealing with the courts. As Erin had mentioned, it varies a lot from place to place. And I think that it would be helpful in this group to share any of those experiences so that we could have a discussion about what your experience has been, and then thinking through how to proceed, how to approach the next couple of weeks, and thinking even beyond that when the emergency has ended.
Well, this is Tracy Steedman, and I'm just reluctant to comment because this meeting is being recorded.
Okay, no, completely understood. The purpose of this is just to have a conversation, and we're not asking for any details of your case or anything else like that. I think it's more just a community experience for what people are seeing. So that's really our goal here today. So I see a lot of muted folks. I would encourage you, this is really your time. We're happy to share what the MSBA has been up to in our experiences. But, our purpose here really is to just continue to have that community concept and, to bring everyone together. I think another opportunity here is if you have any questions for us, I think this is a great time to connect with us. We certainly see your emails and your communications when we're in the webinars, but really if there's anything that you're interested to know from our end or any issues that you'd like us to seek answers to, as Richard mentioned, we have been reaching out beyond just the Maryland courts, but going into the governor's office and other entities and other state and local agencies as things continue. So we'd be glad to field any questions or any general, thoughts that you have as this goes on. It looks like I think it's Ron Angela has a chat. So while we're waiting for that, I know we have some other MSBA staff on here. If anyone has any other updates, please feel free to jump in. As Aaron had mentioned, what we have been seeing from the courts, across the board, Maryland and beyond, they sort of have been on a very similar timeline in terms of extension. So extending through April, extending through May, and then extending through June 5. The Maryland and the federal judiciary, did that pretty quickly in time. So let me just look at Ron's comment here. Your observation is that non-e-filing courts are not processing filings, but I am getting orders from e-filing counties and other members are experiencing the same. So that's a very helpful comment. And it's an issue that we have been trying to track down in terms of what the process has been. For the non-e-filing counties, Judge Barbera, in one of her recent orders, did state that they could initiate a virtual Dropbox filing and that they could choose how to process non-emergency filings versus emergency filings. And we've seen some updates on that from Baltimore City and from Montgomery County for specific virtual filings. So the question remains, what's happening with everything that we're filing in those counties? And the response has been varied based on our communications with the judiciary and with some of the court personnel and judges that we've been speaking to. They are working as hard as they can at capacity with limited staff, and given the COVID situation, have had to have some staff work remotely. So this is an area where we're seeking clarity. As I mentioned earlier, we're reaching out to the administrative judges within each county, and we're asking for updates on that process. And as it will likely change, week to week, we'll ask for those updates and share those with you. But we have seen some letters and requests from judges in these non-e-filing counties to not file the non-emergency pleadings right now. But certainly I know many of our members, our practitioners, you want to do your due diligence. You want to make sure that you're still doing everything that you need to do. So as soon as we have some more information, we'll share that with you. But that is the current status of where we are. Has anyone here had any virtual filings in these non-MDEC jurisdictions? I know Montgomery County just initiated it. It's pretty limited to specific discovery matters. And as soon as we have updates on that experience, we'll also share with you. But it is a pretty step-by-step email process. So that is available and may expand, I think, as this goes on. So thank you, Ron, for that comment.
Hi, this is Darren. How are you guys?
Hi, Darren.
I wanted to check in with you, or maybe raise a possibility with you, because there's a variety, not just MDEC, non-MDEC, but also a variety across the state. And understanding this is the litigation chat, but there's a lot of different law that people are practicing that depend on the courthouses. Would it be possible for MSBA to maybe become a single source repository of the latest information? What I mean is, go onto the MSBA site for us as practitioners, hit a link under each courthouse, name, and be able to get today's current information on whatever it is that their individual administrative judges, have issued. Because we're running around kind of chasing the latest information from courthouse to courthouse, or waiting for the latest directive from the administrative judge. But it seems to me, to serve us, MSBA, centrally could be the place we go to for every one of the courts, as well as federal. So I'm throwing that out as something, if you're looking for something MSBA could do to serve us, litigation otherwise, that would be a huge help.
And I absolutely appreciate your comment, because it is overwhelming, even just to do that as a full-time job. It's overwhelming. So I can only imagine, as a practitioner, in thinking through your practice and everything else, to stay on top of this. I mentioned that we do have this spreadsheet that we've started, and we sent out to the membership last week. We wanted to see what the feedback on that was, because that was really listing all of the updated court orders. And part of this is we want to be as helpful as we can. So I certainly take your comment, wholeheartedly and openly, because we want to make that resource as helpful. So I think we will certainly try to keep that up as updated as we can, and communicate that out to you when we're updating it, so that you're not clicking through to all the other sites.
Yeah, and again, what I'm thinking is, you have a website that is there. It's a standing platform. We all can go there to find what we want. It seems to me it's in the best interest of the courts to share that with you, you as MSBA, and then it's instantly there in a single list for all of us to get to when we want to, especially when we're looking up MSBA stuff. So I think we can take it to the next level, not just emails that come out, but a standing list to hit. I do believe
on the site.
Right. I think a lot of folks would appreciate that.
Yes. And, part of what we wanted to do is to make sure that people that have a variety of communication platforms, that we're covering all those bases. So that's why we have the website. That's why we have the email function. But I completely understand your perspective, just to have a bookmark. I want to click here and I want to see what's the latest. So we'll absolutely work on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. One of the things that we have been receiving a lot of questions and comments about from members is thinking through, what are courts going to look like, and what is the process going to look like when everything reopens, right? That's the big question mark. So while we're certainly just trying to figure out what we're doing in the now and through June 5, what are our thoughts and what are our concerns about when courts reopen again? And many of you have reached out to us asking about case priority, case backlog, how all that notice will go out, and if there's another extension, how will everything be communicated? So I'd welcome any thoughts or questions that you have about that idea of beyond June 5, where we are, and maybe some things that you'd like the courts to think about, or that you've considered and that you'd like to share. This is certainly the place. And we're happy, again, as I said, to communicate any of these and pass along any ideas, any questions. In one of our chats last week, we were talking about how remote proceedings have been going for folks. We had some criminal attorneys that were on the call, who had reviews, and they were talking about some of the differences they were seeing in the courthouses with technology, with language line, and all of that. So I'd be curious to know how your experiences have been, if you've had any remote proceedings or interactions with courts in that way. I think that might be helpful to this group as well. And if anyone's feeling shy, you can always reach out to us later. So no pressure today. I just wanted to, we just wanted to have this time for you as an open communication. And, as this continues, I think, Erin, something we could think about is making this a little more structured and having, some more topics. And if we wanted to make it a closed conversation, we'd certainly be open to that. So that we can have, just be more comfortable in the discussion in a remote setting. But, we're here for you. We'll stay on the line a little bit longer if anybody has anything else they'd like to add. If not, we thank you all for joining us this morning. And Angela will reach out to you with the follow-up from today. And we'll also share with you any other upcoming events and the next chat that we'll have. So
Shwali, I had another question.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I just was interested to see, I know this is a Google Hangout, and I was just wondering if other people have had any experience using Skype or WebEx for virtual meetings with clients or other attorneys, because I know there was some concern with Zoom and those issues that arose, and I'm just interested to know what platforms people are using, particularly if you don't want to use a Google-based platform.
Hey, Erin, this is Tracy. The ABA is actually switching from WebEx to Zoom.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're using Zoom.gov or Zoom for Business or something, but they're switching because, we had a WebEx call yesterday. There were about 75 people on, and WebEx is fine. I think it's not
very hard to navigate. I don't know.
It's harder to use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good to know, because we were trying I looked at WebEx, but I found it very difficult. Zoom seems so user friendly, and I saw about Zoom.gov, but I couldn't really figure out what that cost looks like, and how you really couldn't get more information about that platform.
And Erin, it looks like we have some comments in the chat from people who have had success with Zoom. I know there are certainly security concerns, but there are some comments about that. And someone else has commented that WebEx was good.
Okay.
And I know the federal courts are using Zoom for government. So they're still on that platform, which is slightly different than what's available to the public.
For free, I assume.
Wait just a second, Richard here. To ask Darren to take a look at it to see if that's what the type of thing he's talking about.
Go ahead, Richard.
Oh, never mind. Darren just answered.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I saw that. And just to clarify for everybody, if you're not looking at the chat, I know that the court's website has listed a lot about the operational and facility things. If you ever dig into it, you'll see there's a great variety of what's listed there. I was thinking of this as the litigation group, really related to the availability of how are the courts managing cases? How are they doing, access for certain hearings? By all means, though, that's a great resource, the court site. And I didn't mean to disregard that. So thank you for reminding me, Richard.
Sure.
Yeah, and Darren, if I can jump in again, I think that the other piece of this is that you can have the same information, but you're going to need it in different formats, right? Depending on your practice area. So I think the spreadsheet is kind of like step one, where you can get all the information. As we continue to talk to the local administrative judges, we are thinking about putting together a resource that specifically is looking at each of those courts and then offering across the board, what are they doing for remote hearings, just kind of getting the procedure across the board for all 24 locations.
Well, and I think that if nothing else, even if it's not just this group, but if MSBA reminds everybody one way or another that these resources are out there, that's another help.
Yes.
And I appreciate you guys pointing out that there are at least a couple resources like that in existence.
Right. And we do try to put that on our site, but as you know, everything changes all the time. So kind of to stay on top is, it's a constant challenge, but we want to make it the most useful that we can. We have another comment from Ron here, who's asking if anyone has had success in conducting mediation or arbitration remotely, and if you would share your experience.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's Mary Ellen. It took me a while to get my microphone to work. In responding to Ron's request, a question, and also Erin, I've been using Zoom, and I've done mediation and collaborative law meetings by Zoom. What I do is I use a lot of the safeguards, setting up a password, creating a meeting room where you have to admit people in. And from my reading, Zoom has been a problem when using your computer or laptop, especially if you're sharing a screen. And what I've heard is if you're using an iPad, there's a lot more security in using Zoom. So my office uses Zoom for our staff meetings that we're doing weekly, and then by Zoom. And then also, like I said, my collaborative meetings have gone very well by Zoom. But I think you just have to make sure you're using the password feature. And I'm not using it on my computer, and I'm not sharing screens with my computer, because that's what I was told can create a problem with Zoom.
Could you also talk about, aside from the remote technology, what that experience was like in terms of those meetings or those mediations or collaborative law sessions?
Yes. Well, definitely the collaborative meetings, just like my staff meetings, and even if you do the social Zoom, you got to be prepared for the first aspect of it, for people to learn how to use it, how to use their camera, how to turn their mic on, like unmute yourself is usually the most common phrase you're going to hear. But so people have to get comfortable with it. But I was really impressed by how the clients are so comfortable with it. And I'm doing all my consultations now by Zoom, and they really seem to appreciate the video aspect of it.
And we have another comment here from, is it Shadon? I've done sample experiences with colleagues to get the kinks out prior to meetings with clients on Zoom. So yes, that's very helpful to kind of do a trial run before you roll this out with a client or business partner. And I think we've got a great resource here. And I think certainly if anyone posted to the list, and asked to do something, to do a trial, Erin, I'm sure we'd get a lot of responses because, it is a lot to manage on top of the regular aspects of our practice.
This is Tracy Steedman. I participated in a couple of remote mediations, and they're just like regular mediations. I mean, you're never in the same room with the other party anyway, except for the first 10 minutes. The issue I'm having, though, is with other lawyers. Right now, they're refusing to do any discovery, any remote depositions, which I've done before this pandemic, or do anything remotely because they're not comfortable with it. So, for example, cases now have been sitting for 6 weeks, and now we'll sit till whenever the court's open and then start dealing with discovery disputes, because I'm not going to file a motion to compel discovery right now because of the way the courts are handled. So I'm just curious as to how the judges are going to deal with these lawyers who have refused to participate because of the pandemic.
And I think that's something that we're hearing across the board. And if anyone else has comments on that, we certainly be open to hearing it. But it's those two things that we're balancing, health and safety, and then trying to continue to do what we need to do to represent clients. And we have seen from some jurisdictions where the judges have been requesting, please don't file these other motions. Please don't ask for an extension right now. We'll get to you. We'll be liberal. But, we don't have a lot of specific orders that talk about that. So I think that's something where it would be helpful to get some clarity. And we are working on that. The federal courts, if you looked at their orders from Judge Berdar, he has, he has said that to the extent possible, continue to do discovery as long as it's, within the health and safety of everybody that's involved. And he's put in place a procedure saying that if there is a dispute, for both sides to file a joint letter with the court. So there is a process for that. And I think it is just always balancing those two things. So we hope that there's more clarity, because as this continues, I can see a lot of difficulty if you're not on the same page with opposing counsel. So thank you for those comments. Has anyone here conducted any remote depots during the emergency? No. I know we had some people asking us about that process, so I didn't know if anyone here had. It doesn't look like we have any responses there. Going back to Ron's comment about mediation, I think Anna mentioned this earlier. We did have the ADR section was really active in putting together webinars about online mediations and security platforms. So those are on demand. So if you have time, I'd recommend turning to those resources, and we have some write-ups and recaps as well. And I think someone had written here about e-filing jurisdictions. Has anyone had any issues with filings in e-filing counties? I know we already talked about the non-MDEC jurisdictions, but have you had any difficulties with that system or in having things docketed, or has it been pretty standard as it was before?
My experiences has been the MDEC counties have been fabulous. Processing as before, we're receiving summonses, everything's moving forward. So it's been a good experience in the MDEC counties.
And have you all found that that you've been able to reach the courts when you've had a question, whether it's by email or by phone, or has that been varied across the counties?
I know my firm's been able to reach the courthouses, I think, in every county that we've had to.
Right. We have a comment here about Montgomery County. I'm not sure I understand the comment. Is Claude on the phone? Angela, I don't know if you can help me out here. I'm just trying to.
I'm assuming what that comment is, that things are not moving forward
in Montgomery County. Oh, okay. They've not been answering the phone. Yes. And so, Montgomery is one of the non-MDEC jurisdictions, and, certainly has a very high level of filings and cases. So that's another area where we're trying to get some clarity about their process and, what we can do to help and who the right points of contact are. I know that in, other non-MDEC jurisdictions, that's also been an issue from what people have reported. I think Rena, you joined us?
Yeah. Hi, Shelly. How are you?
Hi. Good morning, Rena. I just wanted to introduce Rena Shaw, who is the director of the Access to Justice Commission, our partner entity. And Rena, I spoke briefly at the beginning of the call about A2JC efforts and the website, but since you're on the call, if you could just jump in and speak to the litigation section briefly about your efforts and thoughts going forward.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. So the Access to Justice Commission, since the start of the emergency, has been doing a lot of convening. So ensuring that the civil legal aid provider community is meeting, convening. We're talking weekly about issues that they're seeing on the ground with the changes in court procedure. If there are particular questions that are coming up, we're collecting those. We're also ensuring that the leadership of the civil legal aid organizations is meeting and able to talk about management issues. As you may know, we have a sort of different levels of organizations. Some are very small, some are very large. And so trying to ensure that they were able to go remote rather quickly and had the equipment and things that they needed. The community has been really resilient, really creative in addressing the needs and offering still remote services to clients that often do not have technological capability, do not have a way to go to libraries because they're closed to access the internet, et cetera. So they found interesting and creative ways to make sure that they're still available and serve. We are also doing a lot with communications, as Shally mentioned, putting up a COVID resource page site now where we can collect all information relevant, put up things that are public facing so people can kind of understand the changes in court orders, especially for self-represented litigants. We are moving now towards having a social media public information campaign and doing other things over social media so that we're reaching people now while it's a little bit more quiet before things open up again and we can see a flood, kind of a flood of cases. Especially we have a concern over evictions, a lot of debt related issues. Domestic violence continues to be an issue even through the emergency. We are now working with a national organization called the Self-Represented Litigation Network to develop a story map, which is essentially a visual way to tell the story of the pandemic and really identify the areas through different data sources that would be most impacted, so that we can have something that can show decision makers and legislators kind of about the need and what we foresee the need for legal services to be. We see this obviously as a health pandemic, but it's going to have a lot of legal implications for people, especially those most vulnerable in Maryland. So those are some of the efforts that we're making, and I appreciate the ability to talk to you all and engage with you all for a little bit. Thanks, Shally.
Thanks, Rena. And Rena, we have a question here in the chat, which is asking if there's any information on the prosecutors disposing of cases, if applicable, which would assist with reducing the docket when the courts resume, especially related to misdemeanors. And I don't know, Rena, if you have any updates on that.
I don't. We generally work in the civil space, so I'm not too familiar with what's going on with the criminal docket. But I will say that there are efforts in other sort of civil matters to think about diversion efforts before things open up again. So are there ways to mediate issues? Are there ways to divert issues out of court rather than, kind of bring them in when everything opens up again? So in the civil space, I think those conversations are happening, but I don't know specifically about that question.
Yeah, and I would say that from the information we've received from the judiciary and from some courts, that certainly the judges, the ASAs, and the PDs and private defense are really in communication a lot, particularly for bond reviews and considerations, given Judge Barbera's order about the concerns for people that are detained while COVID continues. So I know that that's been an area where there's been a lot of communication and collaboration and quick work, but we'll try to get some updates about what the numbers look like within different counties. And someone here has written that they were able to dispose of a case yesterday by emailing the state's attorney, pretty seamless. I emailed on Friday and it was null prost yesterday. So, I think people are at their computers, they're at their phones, and to the extent that, you have an idea and you're feeling proactive, it sounds like that's the way to get some things done, because there might not necessarily be a process in place across the board. So that's very helpful. So thank you for sharing that comment. And I think that, we have wonderful section, email lists, and these online platforms. And I would just encourage everyone to keep using that. Any question is a good question, I think, in this atmosphere. And even if someone doesn't have the answer, they may be able to help you brainstorm and problem solve. And surely if we at the MSBA see the question, we can do the same and try to get some answers for you as well. And do you mind in this chat if you can let us know what county that was where you were able to have the case null pros? Howard County. Okay, very helpful. And I would say if you don't have a specific point of contact, a lot of the ASAs, like, they do have their information on the site, and I think they are forwarding some of their calls. So I would just suggest starting there and having your case number and seeing where you can go. Wonderful. All right. Anyone else have any other thoughts? Checking in the chat, I think we've covered all the comments that have come in here. And, I want to thank everyone for just being open and, talking about a variety of issues today, because there's so many more things that we have to think about as this continues. And, we are looking forward to having additional conversations and communications with everyone. And as I said, Angela and I we'll talk to Erin and think about ways to do that. And for any of the programs that have been postponed, to think about other ways that we can, bring some of that information to you, whether it was information for the annual meeting or for anything else that was scheduled for this spring. Erin, do you have anything else you wanted to add in?
Nope, that's. I think that covers it. But I want to thank everybody who participated today. And if there are other questions, that people have, I would certainly, if they weren't comfortable, speaking today, if they could reach out to you, and maybe we could, talk about it on the next one as more of an anonymous comment.
Absolutely. And if you are concerned about that, you can just write to me in the comment that you don't want to be associated with it. We're collecting information and questions on behalf of the profession. So we're not, signing anyone's name to anything. We're really just here to take those concerns and get answers for you.
Would it be possible, do you think, in advance of the next one, if there could be a way for people to email questions in advance if they have them? Or
Absolutely.
comments that we could circulate then at the beginning of the discussion?
Absolutely. We'll work on that. That's a great thought. And I think as we work on this, we'll put that in place.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Angela, do you have anything before we sign off?
Nope, I didn't have anything.
Okay. Well, thanks to everyone. Best of luck. Be safe. And thank you all for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Buddy.